You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show. everybody, and welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show and a new day in America. Actually, the new day in America started last Friday about noontime. Donald J. Trump is now the 45th president of the United States. So help me God. It's a great day to be alive in America. Joining me today in the studio will be Kevin Wade. Kevin is on the way in. But in the meantime, joining me is the man who doesn't need an introduction. In fact, only needs to be introduced by one name, and that is Mateo. Mateo, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thanks for having me on, Rick. You know, about a year ago, maybe even more than a year ago, I was sitting in the same place that I am now, speaking with Kevin Wade, and he said, mark my words, come January, we will have a Republican establishment in Washington. And I couldn't believe him. You know, for a minute, there was a glimmer of hope. And then as it went on and people started dropping out, I lost hope. And it wasn't until November 8th where I saw all the numbers coming in and the hope was coming back. And it's actually here now. I really can't believe what we've experienced. It really was watching a political miracle unfold.
Indeed it was. And it's cracking me up to watch the liberal reaction. Moments after Donald Trump delivered his acceptance speech, when you tune into the liberal moderators and commentators, they had one word that they all shared. What a dark speech it was. How dark and morbid his speech was. I didn't see it that way. In my opinion, what Donald Trump is, he showed a problem and he said there will be a solution. The solution is going to start today. So what that told me, Mateo, was the word that the liberal agenda put out to use was dark. Oh, it was dark. Oh, it was depressing. And when you hear that, so what I did is I Googled it. I Googled Trump's dark inauguration speech, and I got 1.5 million hits on Google. 1.5 million hits when I put in the words Trump's dark inaugural speech. 1.5 million hits. So what I'm getting at is what you hear and what you see on the news and in the media, all is coming from the liberal side.
I thought it was his most inviting speech yet. I mean, were they saving up that word the entire time?
Yeah, they were. They had that word written way before. They were going to use that word no matter what Donald Trump said. They were going to call it dark. In my opinion, it was not a dark speech. It was a determined speech. As I said, he outlined the problem. He talked about the inner cities. He talked about the crime and the drugs. He talked about the shuttered factories. And he says that's all going to change, and it's all going to change now.
I think the funniest part for me in the whole interpretation of the speech is that a lot of people, especially online, started comparing him to the villain from Batman. If you don't know who that is, it's Bane. And apparently, in one of Bane's speeches in the movies, he said, we want to take the power from Gotham and give it back to you, the people. And that's exactly what Trump said. But people are acting like that's a brand new idea, as if it's evil to give power to the people. That's what the whole country was founded on. I mean, where have you been your whole life? And that just goes to show that these people, these millennials, who have grown up only ever witnessing maybe the butt end of the Bush administration and the whole Obama administration, have no idea what power to the people has anything to do about.
Mateo, I mean to correct you. It's not just the millennials. When you looked at, I was down in Washington. I saw the people who were down there, and it wasn't just the millennials that were acting up and looking crazy. It was people of all ages. You know, it's... And you can pick a liberal out. I mean, you can walk down the street and you can pick the liberals out. There were not just millennials down there. There were so many images over the weekend that I will never forget. One was they interviewed a 10-year-old boy who started a fire in the streets of Washington. And my thought, where is his parents? Where is his parents? This kid is committing an act of arson, which is a felony. And they're letting him go on television and be proud of it? Where is his parents? What is in their mind? So it's not just millennials, it's people of all ages. But again, I really liked Donald Trump's speech. I thought he did a great job. I thought he showed determination, and I think what he said was he's going to give America hope. He's giving the America the hope, or the hope and change they expected 8 years ago, and not change it into a socialist bastion similar to that of Cuba or Venezuela or China, wherever else socialism has failed. But he was saying that basically what he was saying, and he didn't say it in these words, the buck stops here. The buck is stopping with him. He's going to change things. He's going to bring back jobs. He's going to end crime and poverty in the city. I saw it as a message of hope. I really did.
I did too, Rick. Honestly, I was sitting there watching it, and I felt like I was legitimately clapping at some of the parts, because we haven't heard these words from the position of power that the president has in such a long time. Like, ever since, maybe even if you want to say Reagan was the last person to say anything like these things. Now, whether or not he delivers on it is one thing, but these sentiments of giving power back to the people and taking it away from a small cluster in Washington, we haven't heard that in so many years, and I think that is so important. And it's a message that people, especially my age, need to get wrapped around their heads and actually believe is something good rather than something evil like the villain from Batman.
Matteo, if the Founding Fathers were alive today, they would be cheering and they would be applauding, because that's what the American Revolution was all about, giving power back to the people. I think it's a great day in America when someone of the power of the president who says to the people of the United States is, we're taking the power out of Washington, we're going to give it back to you, the people. I think it's a great day in America when we have that.
Me too, Rick, and I'm looking forward to the Trump administration.
All right, well, we are going to take a break right now, and you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. I'm going to be joined in the studio today by Kevin Wade, and we're coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7. Today's show, like all our shows, is being brought to you by the First Amendment and protected by the Second. Kevin and I will be right back.
I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm messy, but
The Conservative Commandos radio show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos radio network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
This is Pastor Christina Lamanier, chaplain for the INRA.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Manier. We help co-host on the Conservative Commandos radio show, and we want to sincerely thank our listeners who turned out to vote in mass to elect Donald Trump. Governor Mike Pence, and conservative congressional candidates across our nation.
Against incredible odds, you helped create the strongest GOP team to take the reins of power in Washington since the 1920s. General George Patton said, "It's the unconquerable soul of man, not the nature of the weapon he uses, that ensures victory." We salute all of you for taking a stand for truth, freedom, and defending our constitutional form of government. Let us continue to pray for our nation and for God's blessings. May God save the United States of America.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
And welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Kevin Wade and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcasts of our show, check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or at 8 a.m., log on to Leading Edge Radio Network, or 11 p.m., highplanestalkradio.com, or you can listen to our show and all the shows that are part of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network here at WNJC from your telephone by calling 832-999-1199, 832-999-1199. You don't need an app. You don't need to download anything. You just need that number in the telephone. Kevin, great to have you back in with me again today.
Oh, it's it's great to be back with you here on this first Monday, this first full week of the Trump administration.
Amen to that.
And you were regaling us here in the studio with your stories offline of your experiences at the inaugural ball. I wish I was with you. Sounds great, except for not eating for 5 hours or so.
Well, as I was telling you and Mateo, Mary and I, we got there early. We were in line about 4:30, which means there were probably less than 100 people in line ahead of us. And the doors were supposed to open at 5. They didn't open until 5:30. But lo and behold, we found ourselves one of the very first people in the hall. Eventually, we were joined by and I kid you not, about 10,000 other people. And as we walked in, we thought we'd get the lay of the land. And, well, we walked to the center of the room, and we found ourselves right in front of the stage, center stage. And so we thought, well, we would just stand there. We didn't eat or anything, and we would just stand there and wait for Donald Trump to come out, which he did about 10 o'clock, which means we were...
Well, he didn't know you were there early.
No, he didn't. He had a few other things on his mind, but we were very close to him. We were in about 20 feet of him, which was exciting. It was exciting to see him and his beautiful wife. What a beautiful wife. What a beautiful family. Vice President Pence was there with his family, and it was really quite an experience being part of history. You know, Kevin, I can remember when I was, 10 or 11 years old, 10 years old, I guess, seeing the Kennedy inaugural ball. And
on television.
On television. And never having any idea 50 years later that I would be in a similar situation. But it was quite exciting. The people there, Kevin, were nice. I met so many nice people. I know you said to do interviews, but this was just a fun day for Mary and I love talking to all the people, all the Trump supporters, how excited they were, how they participated in Trump's campaign, where they were from. All great people.
They were from all parts of the country,
all parts of the people. We met people from Florida. We met people from Chicago, from Wisconsin, from California, from Maine, Massachusetts, people, Pennsylvania, people all over the country, and they were as excited as I was. So, you know, Kevin, there's something to be said for being around like-minded, positive-thinking people.
who love this country.
Who love this
unabashedly.
Unabashedly.
No apologies.
No apologies.
No cynicism. No sarcasm.
Nope. And then we did see the other side, Kevin. We got into Washington earlier in the day, and Mary and I were walking the streets, and we saw the protesters and the demonstrators, and we saw the results of some of the rioting. We saw some broken windows. I personally didn't see it. I know there were some cars that were burned out. There was some smoke bombs and tear gas bombs that had to be used. People that I talked to who had tickets to the inaugural weren't able to get there because they were stopped by demonstrators, and that was a little sad. The fact that they thought they had the right to be out there to express their First Amendment rights, freedom of speech and assembly, but we didn't, just goes to show their mindset compared to ours.
Well, there's about 200 plus who weren't protesting. They were rioting, and they found out that there's a new sheriff in town, and apparently they're facing felony rioting charges with potential prison times up to 10 years and fines of up to $250,000. So welcome to reality, friends.
Yeah, welcome to reality. And Kevin, another image that I won't forget, I guess it happened on Friday or maybe Thursday. There was some rioting and demonstrating, and there was this fire, okay? And the commentator asked a 10-year-old boy, "Do you know who started this fire?" He said, "Yes, I did." And he was proud of it. And Kevin, in my opinion, that little kid is a victim. That little kid is a victim of senseless parents who allowed their child, number one, to set a fire, number two, to go on national TV and admit to arson, admit to a felony, admit to putting people's lives in danger. And why? Because he, the 10-year-old, and his parents disagree that Donald Trump should be our president. Well, you know what, Kevin? I didn't think that Barack Obama should be president, but I didn't go to Washington. I didn't push people around and break windows, set cars on fire, set fires in the street, harass people as they went about their business. I didn't do that. You didn't do that. Mateo didn't do that. I don't know any conservative that did. But these people on the left, these liberals, have a different mindset. Not just on how the country should be run, but a different mindset on how you should handle each other's differences.
Well, it's like Animal Farm. You know, some pigs are more equal than other, I guess. This is my analogy. When someone is an addict, whether they're addicted to alcohol or drugs, when they go cold turkey and that stream of whatever the addiction is suspended, sometimes they're prone to hallucination and bizarre behavior. And I think that's what's happening on the left. Their days of liberal wine and liberal roses has come to an end because the people in the great United States have spoken through the Electoral College with a 306-vote mandate for Donald J. Trump. I'd like to get into his inauguration speech, if I could. It's my commentary for the week, January 23rd in the year of our Lord 2017. 3 short days ago at noontime on the 20th of January, Donald Trump took the oath of office as President of the United States. This action fulfilled our constitutional requirements and satisfied our traditions. As is appropriate for the occasion, the new president spoke to the nation in his inaugural address. The inaugural address allows the president to define the initial benchmark of the country's present condition and mood. Abraham Lincoln understood this. Lincoln's second inaugural address in 1865 is studied and written about to this very day. It is considered the greatest ever given. Lincoln framed the sentiments of a war-weary nation at that time in saying, and I quote, "Fondly do we hope, fervently do we pray, that this mighty scourge of war may speedily pass away." In the next century, in another time of American trial, FDR also defined the condition and mood of the nation on his first day in office at his inauguration. He said, and again I quote, "A host of unemployed citizens face the grim problems of existence, and an equally great number toil with little return. Only a foolish optimist can deny the dark realities of the moment." But as this first speech of a new president marks the divide between past and future, framing the problems of the moment, it also allows a birthplace and birth date for new solutions. Endless legislative debates, discussions, and refinements will follow to implement any new president's remedies. Yet the outlines of those remedies are provided in his first speech as president to the American people. President Lincoln gave his prescription to alleviate a suffering nation. Returning to his famous second inaugural speech, he concluded with words now inscribed forever on the Lincoln Memorial. "With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations." Roosevelt, too, provided an admonition and a tonic for a nation sick with despair. His famous words that are remembered long past that inauguration day: "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." Another president in another time of trial, now in 2017, followed the same proven template of his predecessors. Donald Trump spoke of our problems and prescribed the solutions going forward into the future. President Trump set the benchmark against which his administration will be judged. He properly explained the condition and mood of the nation in saying, and I quote, "But for too many of our citizens, a different reality exists. Mothers and children trapped in poverty in our inner cities, rusted-out factories scattered like tombstones across the landscape of our nation, an education system flush with cash, but which leaves our young and beautiful students deprived of knowledge, and the crime and gangs and drugs that have stolen too many lives and robbed our country of so much unrealized potential. This American carnage stops right here and stops right now." Giving the diagnosis, President Trump proceeded to give his prescription to cure the ailments of the country. "From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this moment on, it's going to be America first. Every decision on trade, on taxes, on immigration, on foreign affairs will be made to benefit American workers and American families. We must protect our borders from the ravages of other countries making our products, stealing our companies, and destroying our jobs. Protection will lead to great prosperity and strength." And he continued, "I will fight for you with every breath in my body, and I will never, ever let you down." The president's address was neither dark nor grim. Its most somber aspect was a true representation of the current life in too many communities here. The speech was clear and strong, typically Trumpian in that regard. It had moments of inspiration when he described a broad patriotism as the restored common value that will heal our divisions. He said, "When you open your heart to patriotism, there is no room for prejudice. The Bible tells us how good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity." Whether Donald Trump's inaugural speech is valued in the future will be determined by the success of his visions. Historians will judge that. So will we. I do know for the first time in my memory, a president took office and pledged that I and mine, you and yours, will be first as Americans in all the work he sets out to do. That's reason aplenty to celebrate. I'm Kevin Wade, and that's the way I see it, Rick.
Another great commentary, Kevin. We got to go to a break, and you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Kevin Wade and Rick Trader. Coming to you live from the studios of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network at WNJC 1360, your flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7. Don't go away. On the other side, we'll have our first guest, Dale Ballast, CEO of Liberty Health Share.
That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
The Conservative Commandos Radio Show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
This is Pastor Christina Lamanier, chaplain for the INRA.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Manier. We help co-host on the Conservative Commandos radio show, and we want to sincerely thank our listeners who turned out to vote in mass to elect Donald Trump, Governor Mike Pence, and conservative congressional candidates across our nation.
Against incredible odds, you helped create the strongest GOP team to take the reins of power in Washington since the 1920s. General George Patton said, "It's the unconquerable soul of man, not the nature of the weapon he uses, that ensures victory." We salute all of you for taking a stand for truth, freedom, and defending our constitutional form of government. Let us continue to pray for our nation and for God's blessings. May God save the United States of America.
You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Kevin Wade and yours truly, Rick Trader. And for rebroadcasts of our shows, please check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or at 8 a.m. log on to Leading Edge Radio Network, or at 11 p.m. High Plains Talk Radio. Or you can hear our show at any time from your phone by calling 832-999-1199. Kevin, we do have our first guest of the day on with us, and the honor of the introduction is yours.
Thank you, Rick. Dale Bellis is Executive Director of Liberty Health Share. He led the reorganization plan 2 years ago that launched Liberty Health Share under the terms of the Affordable Care Act for health care sharing ministries. Liberty Health Share dates its origins back to the mid-1980s. In 2001, he founded a business to administer self-funded health care plans for employers. As a third-party administrator, Mr. Bellis developed innovative cost containment strategies for employers. He created the first technology-based audit system for health care billing called Medical Bill Review. And MBR collects duplicate billing and billing errors received from providers by using physician peer review techniques. It saves employer plans millions of dollars in unfair charges every year. With that experience in both secular health care plans and cost-sharing ministries, Mr. Bellis founded Liberty Health Share in 2012 to provide Americans with an alternative to government-mandated health care. And with that, Dale Bellis, welcome to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network.
Kevin, thank you so very much for the opportunity to be with you. And Rick, God bless you both. It's just a thrill to have a chance to chat today.
First of all, many of our listeners have some sense for what health sharing ministries are, but for the others, what is Liberty Health Share?
We are a nationwide nonprofit association of like-minded men, women, and families all across America who gather around the common objective of assisting one another with and paying for one another's medical bills. We call it healthcare sharing. And we do that without the aid of an insurance company or the government, just a regular systematic way of meeting healthcare costs, but doing it in community with one another.
And does Liberty Health Share operate in 50 states?
We are existing in all 50 states under the terms of the Affordable Care Act. We are exempt from the ACA, which simply means that members of a recognized healthcare sharing ministry are not subject to either requirement to have insurance or the requirements or mandates of the Affordable Care Act, and so we operate in all 50 states.
And for our listeners, what is medical cost sharing?
It's just when, for instance, Rick, you would have a medical bill, we would ask a sufficient other number of singles, couples, or families to send their monthly share amount directly to you. And we do that through an online technology. Our members set aside their monthly amount in their secure online account, and then it's just matched to another member who has bills that month. And we send each other messages of cheer or encouragement or prayer, whatever the case may be, and we literally help pay another member's health care costs.
So it's a community that comes together, actually a community of faith who come together.
That's really true. We're a Christian organization. Our shared beliefs are Christian-based. Anyone who wishes to join us, if they can sign off on those shared values, we welcome them as an opportunity to meet healthcare costs in connection with or in context with men and women of faith and values.
So how does it work? I mean, if I go to see a doctor, how do I show them that I'm a member of Liberty Health Share?
Yeah, out of convenience, we just give all of our members an ID card. They present that to a doctor or to the hospital. It tells them two things: where to send the bill, and there's an electronic address or a mail address. And secondly, it tells the doctor or hospital the basis on which we reimburse the services from a provider, from a doctor or a hospital, which is a fair and reasonable and honorable reimbursement payment to that provider. They send that bill, we process it, it shows up in your individual online account, and then we assign that cost to other members who are sending their share amount that month, and it would just land in your online account. We cut a check directly to the doctor and the hospital.
And do you offer a variety of solutions for different family situations?
We have a variety of sharing programs. We call them Liberty Share Plus or Complete. The vast majority of our members participate in the Complete program, which is sharing medical bills after an annual unshared amount. That's the amount that we've decided that we're responsible for out of our own pockets. And then we start sharing 100% of that up to $1 million per incident.
Really?
So for eligible medical expenses, we share up to $1 million. You have a heart attack, $1 million. You have a kidney stone the next day, it's another $1 million. You have a broken arm, another $1 million. So per incident or per occurrence, we share up to $1 million of eligible medical expenses. And I say eligible because there are some things that we as a community have decided we're not going to share in. One of them being some of those conscience-busting expenses that are mandated by the ACA, but we don't want our money going toward the most egregious example being abortion.
No, and I don't think a substantial part of America wants to pay one penny for that in any way. And it's your conscience can be clear that your shares, your monthly share in medical expenses at Liberty Health Share will never pay for abortions. How has Liberty Health Share grown? I would imagine as a response to the terrible restrictions and incredible premium and deductibles associated with Obamacare-affiliated policies that you should have seen some success.
Well, just as an example, over these last 3 months, which is referred to now as the open enrollment period, we're not subject to the open enrollment period as a healthcare sharing ministry because we're not subject to the mandates of the ACA. But it seems America has kind of gotten in the habit of making decisions about their healthcare arrangement during the months of November, December, and January. But we've added nearly 20,000 households in just those 3 months. So we're growing dramatically. We have 125,000 members across America, and we are just thrilled at the grassroots movement that's transpiring of people literally dropping out of the health insurance model and instead turning to one another in a mutual aid, mutual support arrangement where we voluntarily and cooperatively share in each other's medical expenses.
And that's always how Americans come together to get the good things done.
It really is an example of that, and you're exactly right. It's number one, the way healthcare used to get paid for generations ago, where communities would come together and help one another, and we have just simply taken that principle and launched it into a 21st century context with technology and connecting one another together, where you're really in connection like a true social community, standing with one another during some of the biggest crises of our lives.
Dale Bellis, Executive Director of Liberty Health Share, that's an organization where like-minded people come together to share each other's medical expenses on a regular monthly basis. We're going into a break right now. Would you stay with us so we can continue this conversation on the other side?
Oh, I'd be delighted to. Thank you for the invitation.
And I'll give you a heads up. My first question is going to be, how in the world did Liberty Health Share and these health cost-sharing ministries escape the net of Obamacare? That'll be your first question coming back. You are listening to WNJC 1360 AM, the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, broadcasting from our flagship station in Philadelphia and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM/FM 24/7. They all end in .com. I'm Kevin Wade. Rick Trader's in the studio with me as well. You stay with us. We will be right back.
That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
The Conservative Commandos Radio Show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the Internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
This is Pastor Christina Lamanier, chaplain for the INRA.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Manier. We help co-host on the Conservative Commandos radio show, and we want to sincerely thank our listeners who turned out to vote en masse to elect Donald Trump, Governor Mike Pence, and conservative congressional candidates across our nation.
Against incredible odds, you helped create the strongest GOP team to take the reins of power in Washington since the 1920s. General George Patton said, "It's the unconquerable soul of man, not the nature of the weapon he uses, that ensures victory." We salute all of you for taking a stand for truth, freedom, and defending our constitutional form of government. Let us continue to pray for our nation and for God's blessings. May God save the United States of America.
You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Thank you, Colonel West. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our websites, ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com. Or at 8 a.m., log on to Leading Edge Radio Network, or at 11 p.m., log on to highplains.talkradio.com. Now you can listen to the Conservative Commandos from any phone, anywhere, by calling 832-999-1199. That's 832-999-1199. I've used it many times. It works well. Dale Bellis, Executive Director of Liberty Health Share, stayed with us through the break. And Liberty Health Share is a nonprofit organization of like-minded, in many cases, in fact, I'll say almost universally, faith-centered people who share each other's medical expenses on a regular monthly basis. And surprisingly, this common sense plan, which is to me just a reflection of how good things have gotten done in our country since the days of barn raising, escaped the clutches, and those are my words, of the incredibly complex Affordable Care Act of 2010, commonly known as Obamacare. Mr. Bellis, how did Liberty Health Share manage to avoid getting ensnared in that bureaucracy?
At the time of the passage of the Affordable Care Act in 2009-2010, a number of healthcare sharing ministries rallied together, approached some of the legislators, and basically appealed to them that, number one, we were a group of faith-based individuals meeting our own health care costs, and that it would be really provide a religious exemption from a mandate if it violated religious conscience. And they agreed to do so. And they inserted into the Affordable Care Act an entire section that identified healthcare sharing ministries as being exempt from the ACA. So it was a true answer to prayer. It was a real courageous move on the part of those legislators, just recognizing that is the tradition in America. But unfortunately, after the ACA got passed, those mandates were enforced by a very aggressive and kind of antithetical administration that really wanted to enforce healthcare rules and mandates regardless of people's conscience. But the legislators were not nearly so resistant to the idea.
Now, health-sharing ministries have existed going back to, the 1980s? Did you mention that earlier?
Well, healthcare sharing is a tradition that has existed for generations, particularly among small church groups like Amish or Mennonite.
Sure.
They have really modeled that pattern of meeting each other's healthcare expenses within community with one another. In 1982, it was the first opportunity in a modern setting for cross-denominational individuals to come together to share healthcare costs. Since then, a number of other healthcare sharing ministry groups have sprung up, and Liberty Health Share is a continuation, a relaunch of an existing health share group that's been in existence since 1995.
My wife is from the healthcare community. She's a registered nurse, and in southeastern Pennsylvania, it's not unusual to run across Amish communities and Amish family members, and they actually do have a reputation that when one of theirs is ill and needs to be treated in a hospital setting, the entire community commits to paying the bill, and that transaction has been proven out for forever. And it's perfectly acceptable to hospital administrators because the Amish are always good to their word.
And that tradition has continued with healthcare sharing as well. We are readily received and respected and appreciated by both doctors and hospitals. And our members, when they present their ID cards, doctors love it because it eliminates all of the red tape of the bureaucracy that they unfortunately have to deal with so frequently in our current world of healthcare. And the reimbursements that we send to doctors and hospitals are prompt and fair and honorable, and they receive those with gratitude because it just eliminates not only the bureaucracy but reestablishes the relationship that doctors long for, and that is the relationship between the doctor and the patient without being intruded upon by either government or medocrats. And so they love that reestablishment of the connection between the doctor and the patient, because in our setting, it's the patient managing, directing, and controlling their own health care, and that's really what Liberty Health Share provides.
And that patient involvement also does a lot to contain costs, I would imagine.
Well, it does, because number one, we are all self-pay patients responsible for our own care and our own treatment. We just simply choose to share those costs in community with one another. When it's your own money at stake, it changes behavior. It changes your mindset because you're evaluating those costs. You're checking out the treatment plan. You're eliminating unnecessary treatments because it's your pocket at stake. It's your pocketbook, and so consequently, we have tens of thousands of households who are the gatekeepers for those kinds of expenses, and consequently, we've been able to share those medical bills at a very efficient way.
And I'm just looking through some literature about Liberty Health Share. Apparently, your overheads are about 12% or something like that.
We have very low administrative costs because, again, we're nonprofit. We've eliminated and stripped out the profit motivation and provide that kind of facilitation of sharing in the least costly way possible. And so our target, it's the second year and after. The first year there are some startup expenses, but second year and after, our target is 12%, and we've maintained that over the course of the whole lifetime of our existence.
Now, if one of your members calls with the question, they don't get routed to a call center in Bombay, do they?
Thankfully, we have focused very carefully on providing that kind of service to our members, and they talk to a member services representative just right here in northeastern Ohio.
Northeastern Ohio, right in the heartland. Now, I just want to remind our listeners, we're speaking with Dale Bellis, Executive Director of Liberty Health Share. It's a health cost-sharing ministry. It's a nonprofit organization for like-minded people who really share in each other's medical expenses on a regular monthly basis. Now, I have yet to ask you how our listeners can learn more in detail about Liberty Health Share.
Well, the easiest way, frankly, is just to go straight to our website. It's libertyhealthshare.org, libertyhealthshare.org. They can ask for a free information packet. We call it a decision guide that will go directly to their email electronically or by mail if they prefer. They can call. There's a toll-free number there to call that goes directly to our contact center here in Ohio and can talk to one of our trusted advisors or just peruse the pages of the website because, frankly, it is a paradigm shift. It's a mind shift change of depending upon one another in community to care for each other, number one, and to pay each other's medical bills so that the dollars are not coming from a large corporation somewhere. It's coming from another member. And so not only are we spending each other's dollars as members of Liberty Health Share, we're also sending our dollars to one another, person to person, member to member. And so that takes a little bit of education to grasp and understand. So libertyhealthshare.org, and those resources are there for people to take advantage of.
Now, there's a different dictionary that applies to some of the terms that are ingrained in the insurance industry because Liberty Health Share is not an insurance company.
Precisely so. We do not use insurance terms for the very purpose that we don't want to communicate to a prospective member that we're anything other than what we are, which is a ministry to one another, taking the mutual pledge to share in each other's medical expenses on a regular monthly basis. That's a whole different foundation than signing a contract of indemnity with an insurance company. And so we are not insurance, don't want to be, and we are far more motivated because we each participate out of our core belief that God has placed us here on earth to allow our resources to be shared with others in need, number one, and that we have an obligation to care for our bodies, take responsibility for the care of our health.
And just to give a kind of a dollars and cents reference point, let's say I'm a working guy. I'm 46. My wife is 42. We've got 2 kids at home. What would a family of 4 expect as a monthly share? Should they join other faith-centered people with a Liberty Health Share?
Yeah, we ask our members to set aside every month in their online account, we call it a share box, $4.49 for a family of 3 or more. We don't count more than 3, so mom, dad, and all kids. It is $4.49 for a family. It is. Let me start with a single. It's $1.99 for a single, $2.99 for a couple, or $4.49 for a family.
And family can be large. I mean, I imagine you have some with 7 kids or 8 kids or more.
We do indeed. In fact, we have historically had the pleasure and joy of enrolling large families with Liberty Health Share. We're family friendly, and so we rejoice over the fact that mom, dad, and all kids are a part of that family unit.
And if you're getting other faith-minded people to share your health cost burdens for a share box of $499 a month, you have been blessed twice over, I believe.
It's almost, I liken it to this, Rick, that we've just come through the Christmas season, the greatest period of the year when we're so focused on giving and contributing to others and feeling the joy and fulfillment of giving to another person. We get that experience every month because our money is going to another person. It's not going to the black hole of a corporation somewhere. Our dollars, we see it transparently and openly online. We're assigned to another member, and you see your dollars move from your online account to theirs, and you message them with cheer, encouragement, or prayer. And so we're contributing to the need of another person, and that produces a sense of significance, of fulfillment, when you know my money is being used every month to assist another person who has a true need.
Dale Bellis, Executive Director of Liberty Health Share. One more time before we go, tell our listeners how to learn more.
Go to libertyhealthshare.org, libertyhealthshare.org. Phone number there to call our contact center. You can ask for free information, a decision guide, review the pages of the website, libertyhealthshare.org.
Dale Bellis, thanks so much for being with us, and keep up the good work that you do.
It is such a pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
You are listening to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, broadcasting from WNJC 1360 AM, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, and AM/FM 24/7. I'm Kevin Wade. I'm in the studio with Rick Trader. We have Lou Euler. He's a returning guest. He's going to be up just after this break. Stay with us.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
This is Rick Trader, host of the Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm John Forsyth, owner of WNJC Radio. Fellow patriots, the Conservative Commandos radio show is for conservatives, about conservatives, and by conservatives.
We are patriots who want to take our country back from the likes of Barack Obama, Harry Reid, George Soros, and Nancy Pelosi.
But we can't keep up this fight without your critical support today. Can you help? Please go to www.helpccrs.com right now and make a donation by credit card or PayPal. That's www.helpccrs.com.
Our goal is to expose the liberal agenda and distortions. We are fighting to spread the truth about political issues, political leaders, and conservative issues and values.
Our hosts are not paid. In fact, we buy our own airtime, studio time, and pay our own expenses.
We created the show because we are trying to make a difference. So can you help the CCRS expose the truth in 2014 and beyond? Go to www.helpccrs.com.
Help keep the Conservative Commandos radio show on the air by going to www.helpccrs.com and make a donation today to return our country to the conservative roots created by our founding fathers.
If your health care has become a burden and you're worried about being stuck for another year, you have options. Liberty Health Share could be the solution to your problem. Open enrollment is here and could be your chance to free yourself from insurance. Take this opportunity and join Liberty Health Share. You can finally be in control and have freedom when it comes to your health care. Liberty Health Share offers an entirely open network, which means you choose your doctors and you choose your hospitals. Liberty Health Share offers freedom from insurance, meaning no tax-related penalties. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty Health Share today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237. Or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org. That's libertyhealthshare.org.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos Radio Show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos Radio Show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show
at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
You are listening to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. I'm Kevin Wade. I'm in the studio with Rick Trader. It is the first happy Monday in the age of Donald Trump. It is the 23rd of January in the year of our Lord 2017. If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our websites, CCRS Network and CCRShow.com. Or at 8 a.m., log on to Leading Edge Radio Network, or at 11 p.m., log on to HighPlainsTalkRadio.com. And you can listen to the Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. Rick, there's huge, as I would say these days, huge change in the air. And one of the welcome changes for almost everyone is President Donald J. Trump is planning to make significant rate reductions and tax code simplifications. And to speak to what this means to our economy, I've invited to rejoin us, because he's been on our show before. I've invited Lou Euler. He's the founder and president of the National Tax Limitation Committee. It's one of the nation's leading grassroots taxpayer advocate organizations. They have offices in Sacramento, out in the West Coast, as well as in Washington. And Lou Euler is well known among members of Congress and legislators in states across the country as someone who keeps fighting the battle on our behalf. And he's written numerous articles and opinion pieces, including Red State Uprising, How to Take Back America, and also Setting Limits, Constitutional Control of Government. And that book includes a foreword by his friend, the late, great Milton Friedman. That was published back in 1989. Lou Euler is one of the lions of the conservative movement, in my opinion, and we are very fortunate to have him with us today. Lou Euler, welcome to the Conservative Commandos.
Kevin, it's always great to join you on your program. You bet.
Now, you have been fighting the good fight to keep tax rates low, lower, and lowest since you were on the Ronald Reagan team back in Sacramento. We now have a low tax rate friendly president who gives all appearances of having the energy and the willpower to see his campaign pledge through to realization. What will that mean to this country?
Well, we think it will cause explosive growth. And what Trump is doing, and what Paul Ryan and his team in the House have been doing, is charting the new course following the lead of Reagan in 81, 82, etc. And it is not only simplifying the tax code and reducing rates, it is also eliminating substantial burden of government regulation. It is getting a handle on spending that is absolutely out of control. As you know, during Obama's time, food stamp use doubled from 24 to 48 million people. And so every aspect of fiscal responsibility has been dashed on the progressive rocks. And now Trump and Ryan and company are really very much on the same page. The only difference is a slight difference in the proposed corporate tax rate. Ryan wants to bring it from its current 35%, which is highest in the industrialized world, down to 20%. Trump wants to bring it to 15%. And I think it's important for us in the course of the discussion here on your program to talk about what corporate taxes really are, who really pays them, and why we should be so concerned about them.
Well, let me put on my radical left hat and say, what's wrong about soaking these big companies and getting those punitive profits that they've taken from the working people? What's wrong about having high tax rates?
Well, what we have to recognize, and studies worldwide have confirmed, and even some relatively non-conservative economists, some more liberal economists, Larry Kotlikoff at Boston University, etc., have confirmed that corporations do not pay taxes, they collect them. They collect them from three sources: from the workers in lower wages and in foregone jobs, from the customer by charging higher price for the good or service of that corporate structure, and thirdly by the owners, the shareholders, in lower dividends. But by far and away the biggest bang of that corporate tax is borne by workers. Up to 90 cents out of every dollar of corporate tax in reduced wages. And when you add the current corporate tax structure in America, which is double taxation. Not only is let's say a foreign corporation, an American corporation doing business in a foreign country, not only are they taxed by that country at its tax rate, but upon the return of the results of that to America, the 35% tax is imposed here. As a result, American corporations doing business offshore have been holding their cash offshore. We're now nearing $3 trillion of money that could come home, could create jobs, could provide capital for activities here in the U.S. that stands offshore. So we are on the brink of making major changes if we have finally a rational approach to corporate earnings.
Has any tax rate been thrown around relative to bringing home those stranded profits overseas?
Now, I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear that.
Has any? I mean, at the moment, if Honeywell wants to bring back profits from Denmark, they're going to be taxed at a 35% corporate rate.
Yes, they get hit by that 35% rate, and this is one of the reasons that we have experienced what are called corporate inversions, where corporations located here find a corporation in, like Ireland, at a 12.5% corporate rate, and merge and take up residence in Ireland, move key jobs to Ireland, move assets, move intellectual property, etc., and denying American workers and American taxpayers of the benefits of that corporate activity.
However, the President Trump hopes to encourage international corporations to bring those stranded profits home by reducing the tax that would be applied to those profits when they're returned. Am I correct?
Absolutely. If what we have is a different approach where you just tax territorially, so that where the money is earned, the taxes are paid to that country, and that's the first and last of it, then you have a whole different reaction and result, because that money then comes home to the U.S. and gets invested for job creation and new corporate activity.
And is Trump calling for a 0% tax on repatriated profits, or is it 10%, or is it 15%, or has there been no rate?
He's calling for a 15% corporate tax, and so that would just free up incredible amounts of, and if we combine that with what Trump is urging for deregulation of domestic energy production here in the U.S., now that it's confirmed through the fracking activities here, etc., that the U.S. is the number one source of energy in the form of natural gas, oil, and coal. And if we can develop that effectively, our competitive advantage with European companies, for example, that pay a very high price for their energy, we will see a transfer of corporate locations, jobs, economic activity from all around the world to the United States with a combination of good regulatory reduction and good tax rate reduction.
Well, if this country is, as I see it, the modern cradle of representative democracy, meaning a true republic, since 1776, or actually 1789-90, with the U.S. Constitution, we've also been likewise a cradle of thriving, prosperous, free enterprise and capitalism. And when we return to those roots, we'll also return to the kind of prosperity that those activities provide everywhere in society.
It absolutely, and then the another major area that Paul Ryan is looking at and that Trump has spoken of is to change the entire so-called safety net program structure of America, where we impose a work requirement. Let me take you back to 1996.
Lou, can I interrupt you for a second? I'd like you to hold that thought, because I want to have our audience hear your discussion. But we've got to do, free enterprise, a little business right now, and take a break. Would you stay with us so we can continue the conversation?
Oh, of course.
Lou Euler of the National Tax Limitation Committee is with us. He's talking about the ramifications and implications of President Donald Trump's proposed tax policies on America. He's staying with us. You stay with us, too. We're coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360 AM, our flagship station in Philadelphia.
I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
The Conservative Commandos Radio Show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
This is Pastor Christina Lamanier, chaplain for the INRA.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Manier. We help co-host on the Conservative Commandos radio show, and we want to sincerely thank our listeners who turned out to vote en masse to elect Donald Trump, Governor Mike Pence, and conservative congressional candidates across our nation.
Against incredible odds, you helped create the strongest GOP team to take the reins of power in Washington since the 1920s. General George Patton said, "It's the unconquerable soul of man, not the nature of the weapon he uses, that ensures victory." We salute all of you for taking a stand for truth, freedom, and defending our constitutional form of government. Let us continue to pray for our nation and for God's blessings. May God save the United States of America.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Thank you, Colonel West. You are listening to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, CCRS Network and CCR Show. At 8 a.m., log on to Leading Edge Radio Network, or at 11 p.m., log on to High Plains Talk Radio. And you can listen to the Conservative Commandos from any phone at any time by calling 832-999-1199. I'm Kevin Wade. I'm in the studio with Rick Trader. We have Steve Forbes coming up later in the 4:30 slot. And right now, I'm delighted to have with us a returning guest, Louis Euler, founder of the National Tax Limitation Committee, and truly an expert on the benefits of low tax rates to the American economy. Lou, thank you for staying with us.
You bet. And I was just mentioning, really, I think you could describe the Trump, Ryan, and McConnell strategy as a four-legged stool. We've talked about tax rate reduction. We've talked about major regulation reduction, especially in the energy industry. And I've raised the issue of the third leg, which is getting a handle on spending, on the so-called safety net spending.
Yeah, because you used the example of
by transferring it to the states and local units of government, as we did with welfare reform in '96.
Oh, you think that's going to be the model?
Oh, absolutely. It was perfect. There are two simple elements. One, a finite block grant by the federal government to the state. The state has to operate within that financial structure or pick up the difference, and a work requirement. As a result of that, AFDC, the welfare program that was in effect then, over the next 10 years, the ranks of welfare recipients were reduced by 2/3 across the nation, and the cost of that program was reduced by 50% from what had been projected. And so it's obviously the key that has to go along with this. And then the fourth leg on the stool is repealing and replacing Obamacare with its huge taxes and its mandates and its failure to cover people properly.
I think that has had the effect of the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, on employment and wages in this country has never been fairly and fully discussed. Every small businessman I know basically went into hibernation when the Affordable Care Act emerged as law, because all you could do by hiring new employees was to get yourself in a deeper hole of statutory mistakes, additional costs, and penalties. And, the entire small business world, and I do exaggerate a bit, but the entire world of small business just went into hibernation because the business owners, and these are family-run businesses in many cases, just didn't know what was going to happen next, and they hunkered down to try to endure and last out the storm.
Well, you're absolutely right. And, of course, as we know, the backbone of job creation and employment in America is small business. And you have to be realistic about what kinds of charges you can impose. And what has happened is, with the advanced regulation and with the costs of unemployment insurance, as you have mentioned, etc., we have really idled the small business job creation. Interestingly, studies have revealed the following, that no matter how long you offer unemployment insurance, and unfortunately Obama doubled that to 2 years or more, no matter how long you offer it, people do not seem to get motivated to look seriously for a job until 6 weeks before the end of their unemployment insurance. So it doesn't matter if you have 6 months, a year, 2 years, or for that matter, 6 weeks, which might be just the best solution.
Well, Lou, I actually read a summary of a study about unemployment insurance, as we would call it, in either Sweden or Denmark. And in that country, it was one of the Scandinavian countries, you were, by law, able to collect for 4 years. That's 48 months. And they found it was only in the last 3 or 4 months that there was any activity on the part of the unemployed to truly go seek employment. And so that confirms exactly what you're saying. Basically, the duration of unemployment benefits will be the duration of almost the entire duration of time that some people will use to really pursue finding another job.
Now, you're absolutely right. And, you know, as the center of gravity of social conscience has diminished in America, and more people are willing to accept public support and go on SSI disabled forever, why we have to look out for the incentive systems that we need to employ to put people back into the workforce. And one of the problems we're facing as a nation is the diminution of the size of the workforce of America. And it is absolutely clear, all studies reveal, that you have to increase the size of the workforce in order to assure the right level of economic growth. And the key thing that Trump is looking at, that Ryan is looking at, is all the studies that confirm that economic growth rate is what is key. Ronald Reagan moved from the Carter era of essentially zero growth to an average of 4% plus per year growth. What is interesting is we have been confronting with Obama 1.5% if we're lucky. And yet, when you look at it, what you find is if you can achieve and sustain a 4% economic growth rate per year, you double the size of the economy, the economic base, every 17 years in America, which creates a wealth machine for American citizens and workers that is unprecedented worldwide.
And that is the key to ensuring that each successive generation does better, because we are a bigger and better and more prosperous place. Quickly, we're at the end of the segment. Lou, how can our listeners learn more about the National Tax Limitation Committee and perhaps lend a hand?
They can come to our website, which is limittaxes.org, and we have a number of studies up there. We have taken all 6 studies that Paul Ryan and his team in the House have produced on each of these separate subject areas. And then we've added studies on education, on Social Security reform, on all kinds of things that are essential to the survival and the explosive growth of our nation in the future.
Lou Euler, founder and president, National Tax Limitation Committee, thank you so much for being with us, and thank you so much for all that you do.
You bet. Thanks so much, Kevin.
We're coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network Studios, WNJC 1360 AM, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, and AM/FM 24/7. I'm Kevin Wade. Rick Trader's with me. You stay with us. We've got Steve Forbes coming up on the other side of the break.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos Radio Show is the commander of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We've established a front line of conservative leaders and ironclad patriots to revive the promise of America.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
We patriots have succeeded in securing the next 4 years of American prosperity, sovereignty, and liberty under President Donald Trump. But the fight is never over, and we must be forever vigilant.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
Do you have a passion for American values? Do you believe in preserving the American dream? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, Monday through Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 AM, or around the world on the Internet at ccrshow.com and ccrsnetwork.com. Check out our websites for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
This is Pastor Christina Lamanier, chaplain for the INRA.
And I'm her husband, J.D. Manier. We help co-host on the Conservative Commandos radio show, and we want to sincerely thank our listeners who turned out to vote en masse to elect Donald Trump, Governor Mike Pence, and conservative congressional candidates across our nation.
Against incredible odds, you helped create the strongest GOP team to take the reins of power in Washington since the 1920s. General George Patton said, "It's the unconquerable soul of man, not the nature of the weapon he uses, that ensures victory." We salute all of you for taking a stand for truth, freedom, and defending our constitutional form of government. Let us continue to pray for our nation and for God's blessings. May God save the United States of America.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Thank you, Colonel West. You are, in fact, listening to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our websites, ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com. Or at 8 a.m., log on to Leading Edge Radio Network, or at 11 p.m., log on to highplains.talkradio.com. And, of course, you can listen to the Conservative Commandos from any phone, anywhere, by calling 832-999-1199. Stephen Forbes is chairman and editor-in-chief of Forbes Media. Steve's new book, Reviving America, How Repealing Obamacare, Replacing the Tax Code, and Reforming the Fed Will Restore Hope and Prosperity. That's co-authored by Elizabeth Ames. We had here in the studio the pleasure of meeting Steve at CPAC, I believe, last year. And Steve writes editorials for each issue of Forbes under the heading of Fact and Comment, a widely respected economic prognosticator. He's the only writer to have won the prestigious Crystal Owl Award 4 times in both 1996 and 2000. He campaigned vigorously for the Republican nomination for the presidency. Key to his platform are flat tax medical savings accounts. You know what? I'm reading this platform, and how different would our world have been if we had governed under these policies. Just let me jump right to the interview. Steve Forbes, welcome to the Conservative Commandos.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
Hey, we are looking at a new world here, and you've got some politically, and you have a column at OMG! Exclamation point. House Republicans are preparing to hit consumers with a horrible new tax. What's that all about?
Well, what the congressional Republicans are trying to do is put in this thing they call the border adjustability tax, which is in effect a sales tax on stuff we bring into stores like Walmart, Walgreens, Target, and Kmart, and others. It's equivalent of a 20% sales tax. And Republicans say they need it to finance. It'll hurt American consumers, take out $100 billion a year from American consumers, more than $100 billion a year. And Republicans say they need the money for other tax cuts. But that begs the question, why bring in a new tax like the kind that Europeans have, like the value-added tax, to finance other tax cuts? Just cut the taxes. Don't bring in a new tax that's going to hurt the American people, especially middle-class and working Americans, to the tune of $100 billion a year. For example, it would raise the price of gasoline 30 cents a gallon. That's ridiculous.
Why would it raise the price of gasoline?
Because oil refineries in this country still use over 7 million barrels a day to turn crude oil into gasoline. And if you have a 20% tax on the import of crude oil, then that's going to be passed through at the gas pump, and it's estimated it'll be 30 cents a gallon. So we're going to take tens of billions of dollars out of the pockets of the American consumer. And even more amazing is that the Republicans want to subsidize sales to consumers in other countries. Let's say you sell a $1 million piece of machinery to Iran. That $1 million that you get for selling that piece of machinery would be free of a corporate tax in this country. So we're taking money from the American consumer, subsidizing buyers in Mexico, China, Iran, and elsewhere. And these are Republicans, not Democrats, proposing this. It's wrong economically, wrong politically. And the first thing people are going to see from President Trump is not a big tax cut, but the prices they pay for socks and school items and other everyday items are going up in price. It's bizarre.
Well, the people who would defend those policies say this is a necessary step in order to reanimate our factories and get our people back to work. How would you suggest reanimating the middle class in this country?
Well, you don't reactivate and help the middle class by taking more money out of their pockets, which is what this tax would do.
No, that's fair enough.
That's why the other day Trump expressed extreme skepticism about this tax, because he didn't understand why it was necessary. And the way you do it is by doing the way great tax cutters like Ronald Reagan have done in the past. You slash tax rates across the board. Trump wants to cut the corporate tax rate down to 15. That would be great. You get rid of other taxes like the death tax. You get raise exemptions for people. So there are basic ways you do it, but you don't do it by raising the price of everyday items to the American consumer.
What do you say to people who say this is simply trying to restore some balance to offset some of the abuses that some of our trading partners have engaged in?
Well, our trading partners put in this kind of tax. Usually it's called a value-added tax. So this is what these Republicans, these establishment Republicans are proposing, is that we duplicate the abusive practices of our trade partners. So countries put on a huge sales tax, equivalent of a sales tax, and they then rebate it at the border if you sell it to someone in another country. So Republicans are saying, well, if they abuse their consumers, we should do the same thing, raise prices for our consumers, and then subsidize buyers in other countries. That's not the way you go about reviving this country. the value-added tax has been the key reason why Europe, which until they put in these VATs in the late 60s, early 70s, European growth rates were about the same as the U.S. Their government spending proportionately was about the same as the U.S. Then they put on these regressive taxes, and their growth rates plummeted. And if we want to be like Europe, then by golly, that's the way to go. So we know what works, and we know what doesn't work, and why these establishment Republicans have fallen in for the idea of hurting American consumers and while giving huge subsidies to companies like GE and Boeing, I just find bizarre.
But it's clear that GE and Boeing get huge subsidies because they invest well and wisely in the U.S. Congress, I guess. I mean, that's very cynical, but that's the way, well, a whole lot of voters saw it in November.
This is where President Trump is breaking with the past. Not only in jousting with the media when they do things wrong, call them on it at every turn, and also not doing what we've done in the past. And that's why he got elected. The very people who elected him, working people, people who want to work, who have been left behind, they would be hurt most by this proposed Republican establishment tax. And so I hope President Trump kills this thing and goes for a true blue tax cut that will get this economy turbocharged.
Hey, Steve, my co-host, Rick Trader, has a question for you. Rick?
Sure.
Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, we are speaking with Steve Forbes. He's the chairman and editor-in-chief of Forbes Media. Steve, just today, President, and boy, I love saying president once again after 8 years, but President Donald Trump, with an executive action, is stopping the Trans-Pacific Trade Partnership, and I wanted to get your feelings on that.
Well, this thing does have some flaws in it, and I think that everyone knows that, especially since the Democrats also felt the need when Trump brought it up in the campaign to back off from it, that this is going to have to be renegotiated and taking out the bad parts and preserving what good parts there are. So I think everyone is in the mood to realize that some of these things need to be retooled, re-looked at, reworked, and keep the good, get rid of the bad. And I think what's very promising is the Prime Minister of Britain, Theresa May, is coming over this week to visit President Trump, and that is a nice phrase, President Trump, and start negotiating a true free trade agreement between Britain and the U.S. That would do two things. One is it would be good for both countries. It would also tell the European Union, especially with these Brexit negotiations about to begin, it would tell the European Union, you know, there's more than one game in town. So if you don't want to cut a good deal with us, well, you know, we're going to the biggest market in the world. Thank you very much.
And that bilateral agreement actually could be, well, it serves a couple of things. One, politically, it validates Brexit as being a fact in this world and its likely success. And it also confirms, at least to British parliamentary minds, that Donald Trump is, in fact, the president, and he will act and execute the role. And it could be a model, that bilateral agreement could be a model for what follows with other bilateral agreements. I don't want to overstate what promise it could have, but if it truly works out well.
If the negotiation is successful and we clear away a lot of trade barriers between the two of us in a good way, then I think that you're going to see the European Union wake up, smell the coffee or whatever they smell over there in the morning, and negotiate a similar deal with us and with Britain. So instead of trying to politicize the economies, as the European Union has done, go back instead to the basics of making it easier for people to buy and trade with each other and have rules that are adhered to. One of the problems with the previous administration, that's nice to say previous administration of Barack Obama.
It is
that while there are plenty of remedies on the books to deal with trade abuses, they never used them. It's like having laws in the books that you don't rob banks or hurt people, but you never enforce them.
Well, we actually had several of those.
Now we're going to enforce them.
Steve,
these are needed. I'm sure we're going to get them.
Steve, we also had numerous laws on the federal books that weren't enforced as well under the previous administration.
Exactly, and new ones invented out of whole cloth.
Now,
like a king.
Now, Steve, first of all, I want to give a personal note of thanks. And this comes out of nowhere. I started a business 30-plus years ago, and I'm an engineer, and I run a really great engineering business. And I started that business knowing everything there was to know about engineering as I thought. But I didn't know the word invoice. I didn't know what the word meant. And it was by consuming your periodical that I educated myself on the ways of business and how it actually works and what mistakes big and small companies had made. And I just want to pass along a very personal note of thanks to Forbes magazine. And you sit at the top of that organization.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad we were able to help you out and give you useful insights, information that enabled you to get a business off the ground and off and running. That's the essence of the American dream. Is taking a concept and making it a reality. And as you know, in the last few years, we've had something highly unusual in American history. That is more businesses closing their doors than opening doors. And that's stagnation, long-term stagnation. So that's one of the hopes with the new administration, is with a good tax cut, slashing away regulations. I loved it when the president said today that he hopes to get rid of 75% of them, and also reforming health care. Boy, that's a very powerful combination.
It's a remarkable combination, and whatever happens with quote-unquote border adjustment, import tax, duty, value added, whatever happens there are so many elements of the president's economic plan in terms of bringing back stranded capital, reducing the cost of regulation significantly, doing away with all the burdensome elements of the Affordable Care Act. What potentially could this economy look like in 3 years, in your view?
It could look like what it was doing back in the 1980s. And so powerful were the reforms of the 80s under Ronald Reagan that they carried through the 90s. Once Republicans got control of Congress in 1994 under Bill Clinton and killed, remember Clinton Care, remember Hillary Care, that was killed 20 years ago. And even Bill Clinton signed bills such as reducing the capital gains tax and not taxing the Internet. All good stuff, but it was only because the huge pushback from the American people. So the Reagan years lasted us 20 good years. Now we've lost them, and we've got to get them back again. One of the areas that the new president's going to have to look at as he gets settled into office is the Federal Reserve, which it's crazy policies, making the dollar look like a yo-yo, like a watch. It's like a watch that can't tell time. It's either too fast or too slow. Neither one is helpful. He's got to get the Fed to back off and let our credit markets operate properly again, especially for small and new businesses who have found it a very difficult environment in recent years in getting reliable, affordable lines of credit.
There has also been vast sums printed, printed at the Federal Reserve to provide liquidity during the darker moments of 2009, 10, and 11 that are still sloshing around the economy. When did they go back to the Federal Reserve?
Well, what the Fed should do, the Fed has seize those assets. The Fed's balance sheet today, the Federal Reserve's balance sheet today, is about $5 trillion. They've seized, in a way, almost $4 trillion of assets from the American economy in terms of bonds and mortgage-backed securities. And no one gave them permission to do it. They're sitting on it. So what I'd like to see them do is, one, stop manipulating interest rates. That's a form of price controls. Let borrower and lender determine that. And second, reduce the size of their bloated portfolio. Let those assets go back to the financial system, to the American people, and start working on a steady dollar. And otherwise, they could be the big fly in the ointment if they mess up. So the new President Trump's going to have to start looking and issuing orders to the Fed. What you've done has failed for 10 years. You better start rethinking things like we're doing everything else.
Steve, where should the dollar be? I mean, for some years now, we've heard folks in Washington talk about we need to lower the value of the dollar so we can export more and be competitive. And I've also heard arguments we want to have a stronger dollar so that we don't import a lot of inflation, so to speak, and our dollar is sound and can be trusted around the world. How do you see it?
Well, the dollar should have a steady value, and the way you do it, it's very highly unfashionable today in economic circles. But the way you do it is the way we did it for 180 years, for the first 180 years of our country's existence. And that is to link the values dollar to gold. For a variety of reasons, gold keeps its intrinsic value stable better than anything else. When you see the price of gold fluctuate, that is not the value of gold fluctuating. That stays steady. It's the value of the dollar that is fluctuating, the value of the yen that is fluctuating. So for 180 years, we kept the dollar steady. It's like having 12 inches in a foot, 60 minutes in an hour. Kept the dollar steady in value. And so even though during that 180 years we had 2 world wars, a Great Depression, a Civil War, a lot of commotion in between, despite all of that, we achieved the highest average growth rates in the history of the world, history of humankind. And since then, since we've allowed the dollar to be a plaything of politicians and bureaucrats, our growth rate, average growth rate, has fallen. If we'd maintained that 180-year average growth rate since the 1970s, our economy today would be 50% larger. Imagine pay being 50% higher than it is today. Over time, this kind of games playing hurts. Look at countries like Brazil and Argentina, which routinely fool around with their money instead of striving for a stable value. And compare that to, say, Switzerland or Germany, which try to keep a stable value, and you can see the difference.
Just on a humorous aside, I understand that almost everyone in Venezuela these days is a millionaire.
Yes, and in Zimbabwe, they're billionaires. You can get their some of their old dollar bills that are denominated in trillions. You don't realize how rich you can be.
And I had asked someone, what does $1 trillion bill buy in Zimbabwe? And they said a can of Pepsi.
Maybe.
Now, if you don't mind, because sometimes I enjoy when we have a conversation that doesn't just focus on politics of the moment, but this is actually very educational to me and I think our listeners. Why is it, if you don't mind, Steve, why is it that a dollar of steady and constant value contributes to prosperity? Could you explain that to our audience?
Well, the way we get ahead, the way we become prosperous, is by buying and selling with each other, to exchanging with each other. You know, if we didn't exchange with one another, we'd still be living in caves. And money makes buying and selling with each other much easier. We do it billions of times a day. You know, in the old days, as you know, we had barter. But barter is very inefficient. Imagine trying to deposit a cow into an ATM or withdrawing a tractor or a pair of shoes. Very efficient. And what we have, money is like when you go to a restaurant during bad, gloomy days like this, you might check your coat at the restaurant. What do you get in return? You get a chit, maybe a piece of plastic or a piece of paper. In and of itself, that thing is worthless. It's a claim on a coat. When you buy a ticket to an event, that's a claim on a real thing, even though the ticket itself, whether it's on your handheld or a piece of paper, is worthless. But it's a claim on a real product. And so, too, money is a claim. Money is not wealth. Money measures wealth. Money's like a claim check. And it works best when it has a fixed value. Just for a moment, play a mind game. Imagine if the Federal Reserve was in charge of the Time Bureau, and it decided to float the clock. 60 minutes an hour one day, 40 minutes the next, 20 minutes the day after. We know life would be chaotic. Imagine baking a cake. It says bake the batter 30 minutes. So you have to figure out, are those nominal minutes, inflation-adjusted minutes, a New York minute, a Jersey minute, a Mexican minute?
Watch it, Steve.
So too with money, it works best when it has a stable value. Investing, especially you guys know, investing is risky enough. But if you don't know if you're going to get paid back in 100-cent dollar, 80-cent dollar, $1.20, 10-cent dollar, you get less productive investment. So it's very basic. Money measures value like scales measure weight or clocks measure time. And money is like a claim check. And if you fool around with it, prices are supposed to convey information. But if you are corrupting the currency, it's like a virus in your computer. It corrupts the information.
I'll tell you, Steve Forbes, you've conducted a tutorial to our audience today, and I think we were going to talk simply about your column, which we did. But I think he brought a lot more to the show today, and I want to thank you personally for the education I've received by my monthly subscription. And you have a new book, Reviving America. Do you want to take a minute or two to talk about that before we wrap?
Sure. It focuses on the big three reforms. Obviously, a lot has to be done, but this book, in a very readable way, focuses on reforming health care. Obviously, we got to get rid of Obamacare, but we also need patient control of health care. For example, hospitals posting prices so you know what you're getting. We outline how that is done. Getting rid of our corrupt tax code and ultimately bringing in the flat tax. Right now, we need a tax cut, which I think Trump wants to do, but Trump also he's talked to me about in the future doing a flat tax, single rate, simple system, so you can literally do your tax return on a single sheet of paper or a few keystrokes on your computer. And finally, reforming the Federal Reserve, as we touched on, so it stops fooling around with the dollar and makes the dollar what it once was, as good as gold, and it was good enough for Hamilton and Washington. It should be good enough for America today. So those big three reforms will help get this American economy booming again. And I think now we have an opportunity to finally do it.
Steve Forbes, thank you so much for being with us today and our audience on the Conservative Commandos.
Thank you.
Steve Forbes, Chairman and Editor-in-Chief of Forbes Media. I'll tell you, great guest, great interview, and I thoroughly enjoyed meeting him at CPAC last year, if you remember, Rick.
Absolutely, and actually we had three great guests today, and that's the hallmark of the Conservative Commandos radio show. And, Steve, I'm sitting here, I'm listening to you talking to Steve Forbes, and it's an education each and every day that I come into the studio listening to our guests and learn so much from people like Mr. Forbes.
I'll tell you, if you had Jesus on the phone, I don't want to talk to him about fishing, okay? He has things to teach me I can't learn other places. And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but Steve Forbes is a giant of American free enterprise.
Indeed he is.
And it's that time, Rick. It's been a great show. It's wonderful to be on the radio with Conservative Commandos and able to say President Donald Trump.
Amen to that.
And with that, perhaps some of our prayers have been answered. We still need prayer. We still need work. God bless each and every one of you, and may God save the United States of America. Hi, I'm Kevin Wade. Conservative Commandos is happy to welcome Liberty HealthShare as a sponsor. Liberty HealthShare is a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. Liberty HealthShare exists for everyone who purchases health care for themselves or their family, or who wants to control their own health care. I run a small business, and we were caught in the confusion of Washington's ever-changing health insurance requirements. We found a common-sense solution in Liberty HealthShare. Liberty HealthShare is not insurance. It simply unites like-minded Americans to share medical costs together. Join a community of health-conscious Americans who practice long-standing Christian principles in sharing health care costs. That's Liberty HealthShare. To find out how you can easily make the change, call Liberty Health Share today at 855-585-4237. That's 855-585-4237, or visit their website at libertyhealthshare.org.